But to hear Kevin Dresser's name for the first time, how did that kind of come up, or what was your knowledge maybe of Kevin?
Well, I mean, it doesn't take long to go down the list of the top programs in the country and identify who do you think might be movable or not, and that list gets pretty short and quickly. We were well aware of Coach Dresser's accomplishments, and Steve Melchow was at Iowa when Kevin wrestled, and the Gibbons family knows the Dressers really well, and so I was well aware of it. It just was more a matter of, will he have interest?
Can you detail the vision for the regional wrestling?
Well, so we already, in essence, have that same concept. It's the Cyclone Wrestling Club. I think the biggest difference is, the Cyclone Wrestling Club has probably been, that was one of the goals of the club, but it also is mixed in with a lot of social, golf tournaments and access and what we say a lot of like bake sales. Okay, and what Kevin's talking about is none of that. He's talking about just high-level fundraising that he's personally done in the past to find several people that are willing and share that same vision of donating money, not to go to a golf outing or to be at a pre-meet social, but to help us secure the services of young men that are post-collegiate. And that it takes big gifts. It doesn't take $250 gifts. It takes $25,000 gifts. And so that's really what the regional training center is all about. Doesn't mean we wouldn't have the Cyclone Wrestling Club, but the Cyclone Wrestling Club will probably become more of the social element of wrestling.
Spin off from that. Does the university have any financial stake
No,
in that,
because NCAA rules you can't.
Okay.
And so, it's one of the rare things about wrestling that's different than any other sport. Whether that's right or wrong, it's just that's one of the loopholes in the NCAA rules that they allow that. And so what our Cyclone Wrestling Club has attempted to do is kind of do both. And, it's done it okay, but it hasn't done it on the regional training center side at the level that Kevin's talking about.
Was there facilities involved in that at all? Or
No, they by the rules, they have access to use your facility. So we currently have Kyvan Gadsden, Dom Bradley, and Mike Marino that are in our, quote, post-collegiate program. But
I meant for the program.
Yeah, but they use our facilities. They just can't, quote, be in the room at the same time as your current wrestlers.
What all do you have to get in place for that to get to that point?
Well, in theory, we already have it in place, but I think what Coach Dresser is talking about doing is creating us just a separate organization that is its own 501c3 that would be set up that he would administer, and we would help fundraise for that. And again, that doesn't mean that the Cyclone Wrestling Club goes away. It just is kind of splitting the mission into two separate missions.
So it would be one building, under the same building, essentially?
Well, it currently is. Right now, Kyvan Gadsden and Mike Marino and Dom Bradley are funded by the Cyclone Wrestling Club. Okay? And the Cyclone Wrestling Club raises the money for that. But it's been done through, golf tournaments and social events and things of that nature versus just hard and fast. Let's go out and identify some individuals that share that vision and are willing to donate at that level and aren't concerned about being at a pre-meet social.
What made Kevin the guy for you?
Really, it goes back to just what he's accomplished in his career. I told him in the very first meeting that we had is we're here not because you're from the state of Iowa. That's icing on the cake. We're here because you're one of the top wrestling coaches in the country and you've got interest in our job. And anybody that had an opening at our level should have had Kevin Dresser on their list based on just what he's accomplished both as a high school coach and what he accomplished at Virginia Tech. What he inherited based on what left that program on the coaching change, for him to rebuild it, they were ready to drop wrestling at Virginia Tech when he took the job.
You talked a little bit about Matt going with you to Blacksburg. What kind of asset did you see him be in that meeting with Kevin initially?
Well, we anticipated it to be three things. Number one, just the wow fact. I assume that a wrestling coach would think it's pretty cool that the head football coach wants to come, right? And you'd have to ask Kevin if that had that impact. I think it did. We know it did on his son. But the second part was I just knew that what we talked talked about with Kevin was, let's talk about whether you want the job. Let's not talk about compensation. Let's not talk about how and when, because we knew that how and when would get really messy. And we knew if you talk about compensation, people make bad decisions if they start with that. So we started with, do you really want the job? And so part of, getting him to that spot then was moving to that next phase. And I thought that Coach Campbell would be able to help him understand what it would be like to come on board, because Coach had just gone through it. And then thirdly, I knew it was going to be really, really hard for him to have to look his wrestlers in the eyes and say, I'm leaving. And I knew Coach Campbell had done that with the Toledo team. So who better to do that than somebody that's already done it?
The question, it seemed like, from a lot of wrestling fans after Kevin announced he was stepping down was, how much did Iowa State prioritize wrestling? Did you feel compelled to make a statement about that, not only in hiring someone with the resume that Kevin has, but your guys' financial commitment to him?
No, because we knew what we were doing. It just, unfortunately, most people don't follow wrestling. Okay, and a lot of you that are standing here before me, I bet maybe would not be able to raise your hand and said you've been to one of our matches. Okay, and so a lot of misinformation gets put out there, and so, but I can't control that. Kevin knew that wasn't. He knew what the facts were. Our budget at Iowa State is 3 times larger than Virginia Tech's. Now, he spent the same amount of money we spend here, but he had to go fundraise for all that. Where here, he doesn't have to do that. If he can raise that same kind of money fundraising, it'll all go to the regional training center. The facility piece, I'm amazed the number of people that say, well, we don't have good facilities, when we just put $3 million into the facilities 2 or 3 years ago. Most of those people are saying it, they never even been in our wrestling facilities. So Kevin knew that, and so you learn when you're in this profession, you're never going to appease everybody, and so you got to block all that noise out. So our reason for going after Kevin was we want to be good. We want to win, and we thought that when we hired Kevin Jackson. It didn't turn out that way. But, one of the things that I really appreciate about Kevin Dresser was he saw our commitment to Kevin Jackson as a positive, and not, some people have said, well, we stuck with him too long. Well, if we erred on that side, I'll err on that side every single time, because, what people forget is that we're talking about people. It isn't a video game where you can just reset it. And Kevin Dresser understood that.
What's your reaction when you hear him talking about how badly he wants to revive the rivalry with Iowa on the wrestling match?
I think it's awesome because it's great for the sport. You guys know us well enough to know we'll have fun with that. Who wouldn't? Yeah, you guys will have fun with that. We've talked about, Tom and Terry will do their part to stoke this fire. We won't have to bring the gas or the matches, right? But I also think, though, it's going to be great for the sport of wrestling, because, as I just said before, there's so many people that comment about wrestling that have never even been to a wrestling match. That kind of excitement will probably bring some of those people to the wrestling, and so that's great for the sport.
Speaking of that regional training center, what does that look like? What's the financial commitment have to be for that?
Well, the regional training center is it's a if you call it a loophole, it's a way in the NCAA rules that allows the sport of wrestling, no other sports, but allows the sport of wrestling to be able to provide funding for post-collegiate wrestlers. And so we do have the Cyclone Wrestling Club that right now does do that, but it has kind of a dual purpose. It's the social aspect of alums, and what Kevin's talking about is just an organization that's just solely dedicated to bringing in the best to be here. And so that'll take a big-time financial commitment that has to be fundraised, and it can't be monies that we put into it by rule.
Thanks, Jamie. Appreciate it.
Good.
All right, thank you.